times 100, well, that's $20. So I have $1, I'm minus 19. Then the store says, we'll mark a tab for you. We'll make a tab for you. We'll give you the 19, you put in your $1, and if you win, if it goes right, you can have the rest of those Kraft macaroni and cheese and money back. So if it goes right, I can get the Kraft macaroni, 100 boxes, not just one, and I can get my money back. Yes, that's right. Well, what if it goes wrong? Well, we'll talk about that when we get there. Because what happens is if it goes wrong, you aren't just out the Kraft macaroni and cheese, you're out your money and more money on top of that, depending how you trade it. Go ahead and put the story up of Alex Kearns. Now, the reason I'm explaining this is because now we're going to get into a real life story. And this is the story that started pretty much this whole idea as we started trying to, looking at the market, talking with Pastor about it. Alex Kearns was the young man who was 20 years old who had an app called Robinhood. On Robinhood, you can trade options. Now, again, the way I describe this whole thing, it gets even more it gets more impact when you start talking about on the other side, not just buying an option or taking an option to buy the stock, but you can actually buy an option to sell the stock. Why would someone do that? Because it makes more money for the investment banks. That's why. And it has to deal with hedging risks at the beginning, but that's not the case anymore for a lot of people, and that's not how it's marketed today. So what happened was, there was a time where if you were going to get involved in options and you did it on your brokerage firm, Robinhood, which offers commission-free trading. What that means is that when you would trade a stock, you paid $4.95, $8.95, $10.95, depending on your broker. But Robinhood, you pay nothing. So it was like the initial trade would be $4 and so whatever money you have, you'd have to have $5 after that. This, you don't have to do any after that. It's just the amount that you put in. A fun and easy to use mobile app, and even awards new customers free shares of stock during the first quarter of 2020. Robinhood added a record 3 million new accounts to its platform. This is why we're talking about it. This has been marketed to young people. People just like a credit card who might not have a job but have $100. They can put it in an account, and now all of a sudden they're entering into this world. In fact, a screenshot from Kearns' mobile phone reveals that while his account had a negative $730,165, $730,000 in the hole. Cash balance displayed in red. It may not have represented uncollateralized indebtedness at all, but rather his temporary balance until stocks underlying his assigned options actually settled into his account. For the record, Kearns apparently fell into despair late Thursday night after looking at his Robinhood account, which appeared to have $16,000 in it, but also showed a cash balance of negative $730,000. Let's say you wake up, you go to your bank account, you have their $16,000, which isn't bad for a college student. When you begin to read about this guy's family later, his family were actually financial people, meaning they had their jobs in the financial industry. So they must have taught this guy to save. For a college student to save $16,000, that's nothing to sneeze at. And that's why it devastated him when he opened up his account and saw a negative in the red. There is no NCF that can cover $730,000. There is no kind of credit that somebody will give you for $730,000. In his final note, seen by Forbes, Kearns insisted that he never authorized margin trading and was shocked to find his small account could rack up such an apparent loss. When he saw that $730,000 number as a negative, he thought that he had blown up his entire future. Says Brewster, this is his friend. I mean, this is a kid that when he was younger was so conscious about savings. Before I read this, again, this was not a guy who was just loose with money, but they marketed this perfectly. Right now, you can go online and you'll find people advertising and selling and showing you how you can do certain call options and put options, and I'm going to get into the bull put spread, which is what he did, and why it actually appeals to young men, especially who are willing to risk. When he saw that 730, in Kern's note, he says that the puts he bought and sold should have canceled out, because normally a bull put spread involves selling put options at a higher strike price and buying puts at a lower strike price, both with the same expiration. The trade generates a net credit, which option traders keep if the stock price stays above the higher strike price through expiration. It's generally considered, I don't like those words when we're talking about $750,000. It's generally considered a limited risk strategy, because the simultaneous purchase and sale of put options means maximum loss on a per share basis and the difference between the strike prices, less the amount earned when the puts are sold, initiating the trade. Okay, let's go back to the Kraft macaroni and cheese example. 1 box of Kraft macaroni and cheese. I now buy an option to sell this Kraft macaroni and cheese. Why would you do that? Don't ask the why. Just, okay, I buy an option to sell the Kraft macaroni and cheese. Because I know when you start to understand options, that's like the biggest deal, even to me, because why would you do this though? Well, it's not that why would you? You can, so people do. So I'm going to sell this Kraft macaroni and cheese. I'm going to buy the option at 89 cents, meaning I can sell this box not for 99 cents, but 89 cents, right? So this is in a world where the grocery store prices are going up and down. So you can walk into the grocery store one day, it's $1.20, and another day, it's 75 cents. I know that doesn't happen here. It does happen overseas, though. It does feel that way sometimes. So anyway, I can buy it for 89 cents. So I buy that option. I didn't buy the stock. I bought the option to sell it at 89 cents. Then I buy another option to sell it at $1. So if it drops below 89 cents, someone is going to exercise that option. Because remember, I'm selling it, not buying it. So that means I have to have those stocks in my hands in order for them to be given to someone else who wants to buy them. But I don't have the stocks, I just have the options. That's why you rack up the amount so high. Because remember, in every option, it's 100 shares to one options contract. So now, if it goes below 89 cents, let's say it's 85 cents, someone exercises the option, I am assigned, the word is assigned, it's an assignment. I am assigned to give those stocks, which is what happened here. If he was doing an option contract on Amazon, which at the time I think was like at $1,200, that easily rack up $750,000. Easily. So you are assigned, so now you have to give these stocks up. But your other option that you sold, your other put option, which was at a higher price, at $1, kicks in and it offsets the losses. I'm not going to get into how it all works because I'm not going to try to explain it all. I just want you to understand this is meant to be as least risky as possible when you start jumping into options. In no shape or form at this point, though, in most options traders, do they actually expect to own the stocks. In no place here. Their goal is not to own the stocks. Their goal is to start selling the options. They're not selling stocks anymore. They're selling only option contracts. So now you take the market, you take the grocery store. Then we got to make another little market inside the grocery store for people just buying the options to buy and sell stuff in the store. Never walking out with groceries. Never walking out with milk. Just the option to buy and sell milk. That is the world these people enter in on. And every once in a while, that's why it says generally, someone's assigned and someone exercises, and there ain't no $730,000 in that account. Now, to get into a little more of the story, if he did do it correctly, he wouldn't have owed anything. He would have lost maybe about $200. And if that is true, we don't know, and Robinhood's not going to release it, because if it is true, then it is really tragic. He killed himself for nothing. Because he entered into a world and didn't realize the dangers. What's the moral of the story? Stay away from options. Especially if you're under 35, stay away from options. If you're young right now and you start hearing these guys, they're on YouTube and they're everywhere else, Instagram and Facebook, oh, we're making serious money. I took $900 and turned it into $55,000. They did that through options. There's no other way possible to do that on the market. They definitely ain't doing it on penny stocks. That's a whole other scam. There's a reason why a penny stock is a penny stock. There's no genuine clarification of their financials. You don't even know if they're a legit company. There's no way to find out. It just doesn't work that way. They put them on the market, the OTC, over-the-counter market, and that's why it's a pink slip or yellow slip. And now it's in this gray area. It may go up, it may go down. The truth is, you could have 3 people manipulating that stock. It's a penny. See, they're not making it on penny stocks. If you ever hear someone online, and you're here, you're a young person, you hear someone, I had $900, I had $1,000, I made $55,000. They did it all through options. You don't want to do it that way. You don't want to do it that way, because the danger that you're walking in on, if it goes the wrong way for you, you're like this young man. How are you going to pay $750,000 off? How are you going to do that? My son's here? Yeah, you came to me and said, Dad, I owe this guy $750,000. Well, you better figure it out. I ain't got that money to bail you out. I'm saying this because we've entered into a world right now, and it's everywhere, man. Because I was just going through a lot of this stuff, doing some research on it, and it's exploded, especially in the last 10 years. It's exploded everywhere, and you may make some money here and there, but I'm telling you, you're playing with fire. So the reality about investing is that there has to be a clear understanding of what you're doing if you're going to invest into the market. Now, a brief word on mutual funds. Pay the least amount for your mutual fund if you're doing it yourself in your retirement account. Meaning there is a cost basis to all of them. 1%, 2%. If you can get it 0.001%, that's great. Don't know if you can, but that would be ideal. If you're paying someone to watch your money, ask them, how much is this costing me? Because let's say they tell you, you made 50% this year. I know there's a magic number out there. Make 14% on those mutual funds. I make 14% all the time. What's the cost basis of it? 4%? And then the other fees, which if you want to turn into percentage, will come out to 7 or 8%. You made no 14% on it, you're a liar. You made 8% at the most. Then after tax, forget it. This is one of those things. If you're going to put it into a mutual fund, don't expect it in a year. I know I've heard people where hey, if you're going to save for a car, you're going to put it into a mutual fund. It's too risky right now. You can, but be prepared to lose at least 30%. Well, I know this guy. I know a lot of guys too. They're all liars. Came over here on this side. So the second thing I'm going to tell you about mutual funds, there's something called an index mutual fund. Simple concept made up by a man named John Bogle. And he said, why are we trying to gather all these stocks and figure out the best of the best? Why don't we just take the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, or the Dow, which is the Dow's 31, the industrial average, the Dow Jones. It's a group of 30 stocks, 31 stocks, and they're blue chip stocks. And he says, why don't we do that? Just take those and tie them to the index. Hey, that's a great idea. That has become the largest amount of money put into all the market right now. It's index funds. They're very cheap. They're automated. There's no money manager to market it. If there is a money manager, not doing anything but looking at a screen, because they're not supposed to do anything to it. It's all an algorithm. It's all done by computers. If you're in a 401k, then, and this is what I'm going to say too, if you have the ability to get into a 401k where they match or put in a certain percentage in, do it. Your odds, you can't lose. I remember I talked to someone who said, well, you know, I have this money and if I put in the 401k, they'll match. But I'm not really too sure because I have this other opportunity. What are you talking about? If they'll match, that's 100%. You ain't gonna get that on any mutual fund anywhere. Regardless of what your money does, you're gonna automatically get on top of that. They're gonna match. That's a no-brainer. You do it. That if you want to invest for the future, we're talking about 401ks, IRA, that's a no-brainer. because they're going to match whatever you have. That's a no-brainer. That's the one you want to do. If you don't have a 401k, then according to your age, you want to figure out how conservative and aggressive you want to get, how much stocks you want to get into, and how much fixed income you want to be in. And honestly, if you're really confused right now, go see a professional. Don't try to do it on your own, because you'll run into a world that, again, they're always going to sell you something. Kim, over here on this side.
I was thinking about, this is an over 40 perspective. So you have on Facebook, right? And I have 1 million friends on Facebook. And I have maybe 3 real friends that I can see face to face. But I have 1 million imaginary friends. And in a lot of ways, when it comes to options, you're trading imaginary money.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But it's not real dollars. And the whole thing has been around forever in just different ways to different generations. I can remember being, I don't know, like 18 or 19 years old, and I got this letter in the mail, and it said, it was some kind of a money-making scheme, and it was like a pyramid type of a thing. If you sent $1 cash in the mail to 10 people, then they're going to send it to 10 people, and then they're going to get $1 sent back to them. And so, so I did it. You know, I'm young, and so I went and got, I think, $10, 10 $1 bills, took the address off the list that they gave me, of course, and put it in an envelope and mailed the $1 off. And of course, I never heard anything from anybody, and I was so disappointed, you know. And then years later, I'm looking back going, yeah, those were probably P.O. boxes to the exact same place, and they just made $10 off.
That's exactly right.
And so, but you know, just the idea of trading on options, trading on the margins and that type of thing, it's trading imaginary money. It's like me winning a Monopoly. I can win a Monopoly all the time, but I may not have any money in my bank account.
This is true. If you believe you're a good investor because you're good at Monopoly, don't do it. Don't do it. But she says something very interesting, because there was an article that was brought up, and this had to deal, it was in a financial magazine, and it was that is there a delusion, because we live on this virtual world now, and nobody feels the $1,000 in their hand being given. And nobody can even imagine $750,000 in cash in front of them. And so they're trading this money like it's not much, but in the end, it's devastating. It's devastating. So there are ways to invest into the stock market. Be very careful as a young person here of all these things that are out there telling you can make serious money very quickly, very fast. Day trading, I'm not even going to touch that. Swing trading, you hear those words, just think to yourself, there's a guy named Charles Ponzi at one time who created this scheme. I'm not going to go into why day trading becomes problematic, but it has a lot to deal with the birth of the internet and the reality of internet speed and the fact that you're up against multi-billion-dollar companies that are trading better than you are. That's the reality. You're jumping into a pool with sharks, acting like you're a shark killer, and you have no idea. And that's the reality to this. That's why a lot of it, especially a young person, you jump in on it, you're like, well, yeah, I made money, I've done this. You may. I knew guys who gambled all the time. They ain't got a penny today, because at some point your number comes up. That is not biblically the way we want to invest. We want to invest small amounts over long periods of time. That way it can accrue the wealth. And we're not gambling everything in one single stroke. It's not a great idea. It's a bad idea to do that. And so any comments here before we get ready to close off? Any comments? Got Dan Yoder over here. Any questions? And we're going to get ready to close off right here. And we're going to continue looking next week at investment instruments of real estate and your career, which I think for most people is probably the wisest investment today if you're young. It's into your career. And I'll share stories about that next week. Dan, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, I had bought a book a while back. It's called Dark Pools. And so the stock market is where the general people make their investments. But there's the people with the real big money, the corporations and everything, they have access to another way around the stock market. Yeah. So they will buy like 1 million shares, and if you buy 1 million shares, the stock is of course going to go up because, oh, it's in big demand. But with these dark pools, they're able to buy these 1 million shares, and then the stock really doesn't move on the charts until like about 3 or 4 days. Yeah. And so they're capturing the big profits. And then by the time you see it on the stock market, they've already made their money. Yeah. And so, but you know, I think the takeaway from that is you know, it goes back to greed. I mean, you can't outsmart the dark pools or figure it out. So you know, if you do it wisely and you get some of the crumbs, you know, that's good.
Yeah, that's exactly right. As the scripture says, those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap. And that's really what we're talking about. Go ahead and put that last quote up, and we'll close off with this. This is John Bogle. He was a hedge fund manager. He's the guy who was talking about who made the index fund. He was at a party given by billionaire on Shelter Island. Kurt Vonnegut informs his pal Joseph Heller that their host, a hedge fund manager, had made more money in a single day than Heller had earned from his wildly popular novel Catch-22 over the whole history. Heller responds, "Yes, but I have something he will never have. Enough." That's the truth here. Only you know when it's enough. And if you're here and you're like, well, I don't know what's enough, you need to figure it out. Because you can. Because if not, you're going to chase a number for the rest of your life. You're going to chase a status for the rest of your life. As Christians, we learn that word. This is enough. I'm good. So next week, let's remember we're going to be looking at more investment options in real estate and in career. And Lord bless you. Appreciate you. We're going to get started with service in a couple of minutes.